Hello everyone and welcome back to another painting stream with me, Bachacolio. How is everyone doing on this lovely afternoon of a Thursday? I have to apologize for the noise, but there seemed to be some construction work going on nearby. And what the hell happened to the music? That's just starting out real quiet. So yeah, if the noise gets too much, I will close the window, although in this blistering heat I would prefer to keep things open. Yeah. Another day, another lovely vacation day for me. No complaints really there. Being able to sleep in, get some exercise in, get out, have a lovely cup of coffee in a tidy neat little cafe, and a walk in the park also. So, quite frankly, it is very hard for me to find something to complain about, knock on wood of course. Maybe I am a little bit too dark for you guys. Something like that. Yep, and today marks a brand new beginning. We are starting off with two minis, which I will, for the sake of time, try to batch paint, although I know I said I wouldn't do that, but for these two, their details are small enough, so I shouldn't... well, it should go a little bit faster, shouldn't it? These will be the last two line women on my Norse team. And when I get them done, my team will be ready for the World Cup. Get probably beaten down, but at least it'll be a painted team that will be beaten down. As usual, first day we are going on with Bugland's Glow, so we are gonna go tackle the base color for the skin. And see how that one goes. I see that I have failed miserably to file down the shoulder of this Norse lady, despite my best efforts to do so. But it'll have to do, it's too late to go back. Also, I've primed them in gray, and I am happy to say that the camera does not go as insane as it did with the white primer. So I suppose that this will be the one that I will be using from now on, and essentially it was anyway the one that I was using. It's just that I wanted to try out the white, and maybe if this wasn't on cam I would have stuck to the white, but the camera doesn't like it. So back to gray. Also, I am not using the previous whatchamacallit, brand of primer. I went for the Tamiya one in a rattle can, because as I mentioned, my airbrush died. So if anyone is a local to me and is in need of primer that can go through an airbrush, I have both white and gray. And also a suitable thinner. And I will be more than willing to part with that, as I will not be using it. Could use it for brush on priming, but it is not the most often occurrence that I would need to brush primer on. Also, Bronan Dude has now officially been varnished and based, and has joined the ranks of his Norse fellow dudesters. leaving only these two chicks to be mandatory as a part of the team. After that, I have how much more of those? So I have one more lineman, one thrower, one runner, and of course the Yeti. I do have a star player. This guy here. He looks pretty awesome. Supposedly this should be Cheney. So it's a nice mini to paint up, I think. If I am ever in need of a Cheney star player. And of course the markers, which I may or may not get to before the tournament. I think I won't get to them. Anyway, these will be just for another time, probably for the next tabletop league season. I also took some time yesterday evening to give my brushes a good clean, as they were starting to get, well, disgusting, essentially. Especially my brush for base coating. So hopefully I did give them a good wash with the classic, the Masters brush cleaner and restorer. And then I gave him another wash with Gentastics soap, the one that Slow Fuse is advertising for Monument Miniatures, Creature Caster and whatnot. Hopefully they will be better, or at least cleaner, so I shouldn't have as much problems with keeping a fine tip on the basing brush. The rest were genuinely fine. The main brush I used for metallics I also cleaned up, as it was gunked up with paint pretty seriously. I might try and get some brush restorer, just get a good soak in some of the more gunked up brushes, like the dry brush may need a good soak, and again the base coating one. So if I ever come across brush restorer for dunking, I will take advantage of that. In other news, the polls, as I mentioned yesterday, are now up. So please, 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 if you have just a couple of minutes of spare time, come on over to Facebook. You don't need to like my page, although I will greatly appreciate that. You can just go to the pinned post at the top. It'll take you to a Google Drive document where you can select your answers to the 3 leading questions, which are in the following order: what should I paint next, what should I build next, and which game should I play next. As of yesterday, we have 5 responses to this poll, and I would very much like to see more. So again, please, if you have a couple of minutes of free time, just come on over and give us your opinion on the matter, as this will be making the stream more interesting for you, and it'll bring more of a challenge to me. So it's a win-win situation, can't lose. I'll probably keep the polls up until September 8th. So you have a full week and some change to do so. If you're currently watching on Twitch, there is a button just below the player where you can click on the Facebook button and it'll take you straight to the page. If you're watching on YouTube, I believe that there is a link in the About section, or you can just go into Facebook, search for Bachakolyu Streams, and you will find me there. But I think that is enough with this shameless self-advertising. And we're just getting in the mood to grab my brush, start putting on some color on these ladies here. So far, the Goliath gang is winning 100% with 4 out of 4 votes for the next painting project, which will make it hard for me to pick a second winner, which means that I will probably keep working on the Norse as a smaller, less frequent painting occurrence. Just chip at it little by little until the project is fully finished. For the building project, the Warcry Untamed Beasts are again uncontested winner. A leader, should I say, since all is not over yet. And there is a bit more diversity in your answers for the game that you would like to see me play. We've got 1 vote for Dead Space, 1 vote for good old Fallout, and a couple of, I think 3 votes, was it, for Baldur's Gate, the Enhanced Edition. Either way, that should not be stopping you from placing your vote for any of the others, or if you want to enforce the ones that are already in the lead. As usual, we start off with a little bit of a workout for our wrists. As in shaking up the paint. As Pig in Space often reminds me I should get a monkey to do this for me, but resources are a little bit steep right now. And I would not be able to afford the bananas required to maintain a full-time monkey assistant. So I will be doing these menial tasks by myself for now. And let's get the brush ready as well. So again, the workhorse for the base coats will be the Army Painter Wargamer Regiment brush. You can tell that I have been using it quite a bit since the lettering is chipped out a little bit. And now you may notice that the brush is fairly hard. This is because the brush cleaners have a little bit of starch in them to help reshape the brushes. I'm very much a fan of this after effect. So it can help give a little bit of life back to the brush. Which also means that I need to take care the first time I'm getting the brush wet again. I shouldn't force the bristles, as this may cause them to break. So just take my time. Some people say that you should be washing your brushes after, well, I mean with the brush soap after each painting session. I think that this is a little bit excessive, but you should be doing it more often than me. A good rule of thumb, I think, would be to give them a wash every time you reach a milestone. Like, if you're painting one mini at a time, maybe after each mini, or if you're batch painting once you get all of them done. Either way, just get into the habit. Since paint residue does tend to pile up, and because of the osmosis effect, it does tend to gunk up in the ferrule, which leads to fraying of the tip or splitting. Either way, things that you do not want your brush to do. Brush is slowly softening up. And will very soon be in a usable condition. There we go. And as you can see, after the soap has been washed off, it can be tightly packed into as fine tip as the size of the brush allows. I have been looking into the Raphael ones. To get a larger brush with a finer tip for general use. But I don't think I will be jumping into that purchase right now or anytime soon. Also, let's take a couple more seconds of time to clean up the dried off paint on the paint pot, since that prevents the pot to be closed to an airtight situation, so all of this is just paint. Unfortunately, this is how GW Citadel paint pots operate. There's just no way to avoid that whatsoever. And while there is paint being wasted, it is better to clean it off and ensure that you can preserve the rest of the paint by getting your lid closed tightly. So as usual, I will get my brush extra wet before I dip it into the paint. Again, sorry about the noise. And we're just gonna put it on the palette, spread it out nice. Okay, this may be actually a bit too much paint for what we would need at this point. But oh well. Just wipe some of it off. And let's go into it, shall we? Although you don't need to be particularly pedantic with this stage, as in it's perfectly fine to have overbrush on details that will be of a different color. I do prefer to try and be as neat as possible and use the opportunity more like a exercise. That being said, I will fail. I am telling you this right now. You can see a fair bit of the primer showing through. That's alright, this is just the first layer. We will go over it again and ensure good coverage. As I have mentioned before, getting a good, smooth base coat is fundamental to the whole painting miniature, unless of course you're going for a completely different approach, but I'm going for just opaque colors on this level, over which I will build decent layering towards the desired effect. This will be a bit that is a bit hard to get to neatly, but I will try. And also, I shouldn't forget to rinse the brush off after a couple of minutes of use, just to avoid unnecessary paint drying up between the bristles. Just checking to see if there is anything that I would need to scrape off. If you do get paint drying on your brush, you could go ahead very gently with a nail to just scrape it off, but very, very gently, ensuring not to damage the bristles themselves. Again, one of the things that I would like to improve is the control of paint consistency. As you can probably see, this is very thin down paint, and for a base color it doesn't need to be this thin. This is just a habit of mine from when I used to use paints of a much lower quality that are not meant for miniatures, and the only way to get any decent effect out of them was to have them extremely thin. And so a decent base coat, a base coat would require like 5 layers. Which is also when I came to terms that I will be painting everything really slowly. And I haven't been able to fully break out of this habit. Which is a shame. The Citadel paints, although quite gel-like in their original consistency, they still allow to be put on a bit thicker. Like, you don't need them to be this thin. And after all, we are going for a opaque coverage, so there's no protecting the undercoat. In this case, I don't want it to show through. This happens to be a habit a bit stronger than me at this point. And as you can see, I will need, here at least, I will need a 3rd layer to reach a good level of opacity. Somewhere along the line I forgot to keep a look out at the preview, so it is very possible that I am getting out of frame and out of focus. So if this happens and you notice it, I would appreciate it if you were to give me a call out. Just say, hey dude, you're going completely out of frame, what the hell are you doing? And I'll be, oh, okay, sorry. Go back in frame. I always tend to paint from the bottom up. There's no real practical reason to this. It's just a way to make sure that I don't miss anything. Either way would be fine as long as you just stick consistent to it. Because I do tend to turn my brain off sometimes when I'm painting. And the more guides I have to ensure that I don't skip anything, the better. I'm also noticing quite a few mold lines that I missed during the initial cleanup. This is quite annoying. I did give the minis a good look through before getting primer on them and afterwards, but again, when you shine a light on them from this distance, you tend to notice things that you wouldn't notice otherwise. Especially after putting primer on. Like, this has been consistently happening to me. And one of the most hateful things that I do, well, that I need to do, but I don't, is to go back in after priming the Mini, and if I see any mold lines, just remove them, and then maybe go in with the brush on primer of the same color and restore what I've scraped off. But I'm not doing it, and therefore base minis will have a overall subpar quality. I think though this paintbrush may be just on its last legs. I do have another one. But still, I want to get the most out of every tool I use. Again, you can see me going way too thin on the paint here. Not really a problem, it's just that it brings down the pace of the painting, and everything just takes longer to get done. And at this point, not exactly in a rush. I have a whole month to get these two girls ready for the pitch, but still. I'm going to try to take advantage of my vacation days and get as much of them done as possible. So having longer streams. And pushing the boundaries of what I can do in one sitting. And these are fairly smaller, detailed miniatures than their male and olfin counterparts. So the overall time to get them done should be a bit smaller. At least I think. Because on the other hand, in order to maintain their femininity, I do need to ensure that my blends are smoother. Especially on the faces, as that will probably take a bit more playing around with, going back and forward. Also, I will need to be much more careful with the shading. Again, especially for the skin. And just to keep up the pace, if I see that any part of the miniature is still wet before going in with the second layer, I will just paint another section of the model and give everything a good time to dry, because one of the mistakes that are being made sometimes, and of course me being a average run-of-the-mill painter dude, I do fall into this trap quite often myself, is going in with the second layer before the first one is dried, and as a result shift the underlayer around. And well, that's just troublesome, isn't it? Because it tends to create additional texture. And one of the main reasons that we paint with any thinness or layering or whatnot is to preserve the sculpted detail of the model. We don't want to create additional texture. See here, I am doing a bit of a dumbass mistake, as I'm doing exactly that, just as I'm talking about it. I will be leaving this to dry a bit more before I come back to it. I'm getting through the midsection. Generally speaking, it is better to have a longer, broader strokes with the brush, unless you are going for a stippling effect. But if you want good smooth coverage, you need to go with broader, longer strokes. In other words, just be a little bit more confident and things will work out a little bit better. So I've heard, at least. Because I am still very much in the school of short strokes. Also, broad strokes allow more time for the paint to dry and reduce the risk of the aforementioned shifting of under layers. Making sure to put paint up to the very edges of the section that needs to have this color, which wouldn't be as necessary if I was going with a black primer, but light gray and white primers do tend to highlight any mistakes that you do in terms of filling out the sections neatly. And this is one of the reasons why I have actually opted for a lighter primer, because I do want to have my mistakes highlighted in order to better learn from them. Yeah, I think it's about time to retire this whole rush. It does have a little more life into it, but you can already see the signs of attrition. But it still holds up well, and as I am using it for base coating, it's not as bad. But I do remember that when first I started using it, I could go into some pretty small details with more confidence and a better reliance on the tip than I am right now. So I may have been touching these miniatures too much with my fingers after priming them, which I honestly don't remember doing. I take care not to do it, because there are some sections where the paint does not seem to take as well. And usually this is the reason. Leaving some oily prints is the most common cause. Paint not sticking well. My hands are a bit shaky today, which means that I probably won't be able to go through as much of the mini as I wanted initially. But I'll try anyway. But I will definitely get her done for the flesh, and then I will take a little bit of a break, then tackle the other mini, and so forth. Also, once I get to the gray color, I will also paint the base rims. That I have prepared and primed beforehand. Yeah, see this shouldn't happen with the paint. You can clearly see where it just swivels off. Instead of getting a good grip. And my original estimation of putting in too much paint was inaccurate. Probably because I already went with a lot of water in the brush, which I'm gonna do again. As it makes the thinning process a bit easier. So this is more water than paint, and although it seems like a lot, it goes out quite quickly. Yeah, this is better. Interestingly enough, I do tend to forget that I've done that, and I do tend to thin the paint even further than this, which isn't needed. And again, we go into the whole discussion of having way too thinned down paint for the base color. Also, the fact that this is a bit of a larger brush means that the overall feel of the paint flow is different than the one where I use smaller brushes. So the paint to water ratio is a bit more difficult to eye. And as I am base coating rarer than I am highlighting, and therefore using the smaller brush more often, I tend to forget how to use the bigger one. And of course, more experienced painters will say just don't use the small brush at all. Always opt for the largest brush you can actually get to use in this situation, and they are absolutely correct. I'm just not at that point of confidence. So I will be using my smaller brushes for smaller details. However, with the stream on, I've talked about this before, and I am saying this quite a lot today. With the stream being on, I am painting a lot more consistently. I mean, in terms of how often I sit down to paint. So, hey, it's Anif. Thanks for joining. I'm just mumbling about overall painting, fighting with paint consistency and so on. It's alright, don't worry about it. I am perfectly fine here mumbling to myself. Just let me know if I'm being too mumbly, as in my voice doesn't come out clearly. Because it sort of feels like I'm talking to the miniature a little bit. You gonna be painting as well? Alrighty. Okay, so happy painting, and let it be productive. And of course fun. Because this is, at the end of the day, why we are doing the whole thing, yeah? Yep. Thank you. What was I jabbering about? Mostly paintbrush sizes and paint consistency, and my everlasting problems with getting used to both. Ah, yeah, and about the consistency of sitting down to paint. So with the stream, I've been able to be much more consistent in that regard, and therefore I do expect my skills to improve a little bit over time. That being said, I have been watching a lot less other painting streams and other painting videos, meaning that the overall amount of ideas that I'm getting around is less than usual. So I've been sticking to my guns a bit too much, sticking to the tried and tested, instead of going into the unknown of seeing something cool and try to replicate it. And especially when Pig in Space is in chat, he is bringing quite a few things to my attention that I honestly my brain just skips them, because I am focused on going through the motions instead of actually looking for opportunities to improve what I'm doing. And it's usually just small things here and there, like the gemstones on the Ulf Werners. I will definitely paint those again, well, in another color. Because it is just a little detail that can, a little splash of other color that will make it much more appealing, more interesting to watch and look at. And I need to get out of this frame of mind where I am trying to mechanically and by habit just paint. And just because I have a paint scheme figured out doesn't mean I have to stick to it at every single miniature one-to-one. I should not be afraid to diversify, since these sculpts are fairly different from one another, and there is a lot of room and a lot of details here and there that can benefit a lot from just a little bit of a more creative approach. I would like to keep my eyes open on this, and not just on this particular project, but in general. And I do want to go back to these minis after a while and do get them some scratches here and there, or correct the highlights on the shoulder pads, because they've gone a bit ridiculously sized. And I'm doing the others the same way just to maintain consistency. And quite frankly, because I don't really know how to make them tighter. What I mean by that is that the extreme highlight is taking way too much surface. Being an extreme highlight, it should only touch small surface of the painted area. However, this would require me to actually understand and have an idea of what the material I want to make look as. So do I want to make it look like painted metal or shinier metal? and therefore decide the positioning of the highlighting. And I'm not really doing that. I should really start using more visual references, as this will help me improve a lot in my highlighting, and will also help me get started with non-metallic metals, which I definitely want to master at some point. So maybe a bit more theoretical preparation before actually jumping onto the mini would go a long way, instead of my current approach, which is just jump in, have a quick look around, try and match things up to a acceptable level, and just move on. Have a few ideas beforehand as to what you want to try out. Try it out. And just rinse, repeat for the entire team, band, squad, or whatever configuration of plastic dudesmen and ladies currently being prepared. A serious advantage that natural sable brushes have, as opposed to the synthetics. Hey there, MV how you doing? On this lovely Thursday afternoon. I have just started putting some base coats on these fine Norse ladies. And what I was referring to earlier is that with natural sables you can play around a little bit more with the form of the tip of the brush. So sometimes you might want a flatter tip, or sometimes you might want it rounder, and you can shape it a little bit if you're using sable brushes. If you're using, well, natural sable brushes. If you're using synthetics, you're pretty much stuck to whatever it has been manufactured to be. It's not a crucial difference in any way. Not every day, but since I am in vacation right now, I try to get as much stream time as possible. Aside from that, I try to stream about 3 to 4 times a week, and leave the weekends off. So I do need to get some rest, some leisure time of other sorts, so on and so forth. Yeah, feel free to do whatever it is that you're doing, and I will be mumbling about here about putting paint on plastic. Pardon me, finely shaped plastic. Yeah, that's an idea. Should maybe put on the videos during the weekend in YouTube. Or not, I don't know. Oh, I'm getting so stiff here. Right. Almost done with her. Just a hand and a face left to go. And then I will stretch my limbs a little bit. So again, for anyone who is not following this regularly, this is the team that I'll be taking to the World Cup in Dornbirn, Austria, at the start of October. The difference between the brushes. So, first of all, natural sable will always be softer, meaning that it has more versatility, and as I mentioned, you can shape it a little. You can shape the tip a little bit better. It soaks up more moisture, so generally you're able to get a lot more working time out of it before having to dip to rinse the brush and load more water into it. Also, what else? You do need to paint with a lighter hand, so you can't afford to press against the miniature as hard. And this is either good or bad depending on just your personal preference of paint style. However, the tip frays more easily and you need to reshape it more often, but it lasts longer in the long run. So you need to reshape it, but it works. Whereas the synthetic, it's more rigid. It is more like a crayon of sorts. So the paint flow is a bit stiffer, the brush is a bit stiffer, but it is holding a harder edge, a harder tip, meaning that you can go into much smaller details with it, like painting eyes, like eyeballs, irises, and so on. A lot easier than you would with natural sable. However, the overall longevity of the synthetics is shorter because the tip starts to hook, and although this can be somewhat counteracted, it does diminish its usability. Also, it is better to use synthetics for more abrasive paints like enamels or more aggressive thinners. Oh, no worries. I mean, I'm going on a tangent just since you gave me something to talk about. I'm just yammering here to pass the time. And from that point on, there are, of course, a billion discussions about which is better, which is worse, what you use for which aspect, what to tackle with each type of brush and whatnot. But it comes down to personal preference, in my opinion. Whatever you get in the habit of doing, just stick to that and you'll be fine. You can paint everything with a natural sable, and you can paint absolutely everything with synthetics as well. Natural sables are generally a little bit more expensive. Synthetics are a bit cheaper. Again, talking in general, since there are manufacturers that will try and go for quality and punch up the prices or punch them down depending on whatever the case is. Me personally, I've been painting with both, depending on pretty much how I feel at the current time, because it helps break apart the monotony, because it does require a little bit of a different approach with every brush, so it keeps things more fun to switch them around. Only thing I am pretty much always doing is I'm painting metallic paints with synthetics, because it's easier to wash them off from the metallic flakes after usage. And sables, I tend to use larger sable brushes for base coating, because I don't need to go back and forth between different sizes, since I can just shape the tip to whatever I need in this current case, so it saves me a little bit of time. And for detailing, it's whatever. If I have currently a good synthetic, I'll use a synthetic. If I haven't used natural sable in a while, I'll go to natural sable, and so on. And there are some weird hybrids, like the ones that I'm currently using for detailing are synthetics that try to emulate naturals, but with a little bit more rigidity, which makes them perfect for fine detailing. And I also have some synthetics. Yeah, pretty much. No, I think they are 100% synthetic. It's just that the way they are made, the materials emulate emulate naturals in a way. And I also have some weird, very soft synthetics that I've come to appreciate for certain things. Yeah, overall you do tend to accumulate a lot of tools when in reality you need just 2-3 brushes at most. Let's say 4, okay, let's just say 4. But you do need to acquire maybe 20 to find out which of these 4 are the ones that you like to use best. And so you tend to just hoard tools like a crazy person. But that's how it goes with this hobby. You just constantly oversupplying yourself with things that you really don't need that much of. Mainly, of course, talking about the miniatures themselves. Like, the pile of unpainted stuff is always enormous compared to what you have done. And there is an ongoing meme about the crazy people that have the incredible strength of will to paint all of their miniatures before buying new ones. Although I personally haven't met such a person yet. And I don't think anyone has, for that matter. Because once you get into the habit of it, it's pretty much like your Steam library. Like, would I ever play this game? Yes or no? Well, probably. So you usually get things. You end up with a library with, or something that is on sale. You ask yourself, would I play it or not? The answer is always probably yes at some point. So you end up with 250 titles that you probably never touch. And it's the same thing with minis. Right. Let's give her a look over to see if I've missed anything glaring. No, I don't think so. Okay, so her flesh is done. The base coat at least. And now in a few moments I will get to the other one. But first... oh yeah. Yeah. All that being said, no matter, it's still a fun thing to do. It does keep me sane during the harder weeks of work. It does keep me entertained. Well, in that case, once I get these done, I will have some miniature building streams where I put things together and sometimes convert them, change their initial build layout to something else. So probably might be a bit more interesting for you. Because I have, and I've said this a million times already, I have a very ambitious project of building an orc team for Blood Bowl, and I'm gonna be using not only the original orcs, but also 40k orcs and a third-party vendor bits and pieces. So I will be cutting apart and replacing a lot of their limbs, torsos, heads, and hopefully get some pretty unique minis that don't look too butchered. And the... yeah. So the same process would apply for D&D. Yeah, you can always that's another thing about miniatures. Whenever something goes wrong in the building stage, you can always just say it's battle damage and you're free to go. Like a horn breaking off or something like that, you can always just say, ah, that's battle damage, screw it. Or maybe you mean about the actual process of casting the miniatures, which is a completely different topic, of course. Because for that, you usually, well, the writer. Well, I've touched on that, and for the casting, usually what happens is a sculptor sculpts the miniature in a bigger scale, scans it, well, there is actually a Kickstarter right now that that is only for selling the data sheets for printing out a team of elves, I think, and they show how they come out with a printer. So they are already pre-cut so that you can print out the different bits and pieces more reliably. So essentially the Kickstarter will only release the datasheets that you need to load into the printer, and they would be ready to come out. They will probably also provide any settings adjustments and stuff like that. But it is still quite unreliable. 3D prints are usually just for prototypes. I don't think that anyone has tried to replicate an entire line, because they're very brittle, so the material itself is very brittle and doesn't... Oh, was it funded? Do you know? I lost track of it. I mean, it was a cool idea and I enjoyed it at the time, but I didn't back it, and I lost track of it. Oh, did you get it actually? Cool. True, because... yeah. Nice. Yeah, it had a very low funding. It had a low goal, if I remember correctly. It wasn't difficult to reach it. But hey, if you'd like to give it a try, I can get the files from Eatsanif and get them to you. You can try and have a go at it. But most of the comments were along the lines of A, the material that gets casted is brittle and doesn't form well, meaning that it'll break easy. And not many printers have this level of detail. Well, that is of course assuming that you can call this serious. Like, this is a miniature Norse chick that I will be using for fantasy football. I mean, serious is very much of an overstatement in this case. But yeah, I see what you mean. It does. The casts are great. The design is great, the cast is great. I honestly couldn't resist. They are also kickstarted, by the way. And I think that it was a single person that did the whole thing. Yeah, but you can always get rid of that with some post work, like some filing, some putty, milliput here and there to over sculpt it. Like, it's manageable, you can always fix that. Dude, I'll be off for just a minute for a quick bathroom break, and I will be right back. And we're here. Yeah, but I do believe that in a few years this process will be streamlined and the technology and materials will allow for 3D printing reliable miniatures. And not just miniatures, of course, pretty much anything. And it will be a few years. Let's call it a decade just in case. For homemade stuff, that is. Because I know they are already using 3D printers for in medicine, for artificial organs and stuff. But something that is accessible to the public, affordable, it will be a while. Awesome, thank you very much. Yeah, so I will send you these files if you want to play around and see what comes out. And also they are fairly generic elf models, so you could actually use them for D&D with a little bit of conversions. Oh. Let's give it a look then. Yeah, this is pretty nice actually. Yeah, and you can barely see the layery aspect that you were referring to. Yeah, this is very nice. Very nice indeed. Yeah, see how smooth the tongue is, where you actually want it to be smooth? And I suppose all of these word-like things are actually an intended effect. And the rest you can just file off with a little bit of work. And the gun. Wait, what? Oh, that's the same one. Right, yeah. See that. Yeah, so pretty decent here. You can tell where some of the recessed details needed to be sharper in the original design, but still. This is very good. This is a one piece, right? Solid stuff. A three piece, okay, but still, for such a huge model. Very, very good. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, so definitely in this case I would say much less than a decade to get things going. a bit of a tricky place to paint, but it's not gonna stop me. Whoa, D100. Why on earth would you need such a thing? I don't know if you were around for yesterday's discussion about balancing dice and other trivia. yeah, yeah, it makes sense. You can homebrew some custom rules that would use it if you're still having these campaigns. Like you can make a random event charter with 100 instances, and you can use the D100 to roll on them. Yeah, well, yeah, but see, 2d10, you can't get a 1, let's say. 2d10 can get you from 2 to 20. Whereas, but I agree, it is fun to have weird dice. The divisional recap is about to go live. I'm gonna watch it later. After I've been obliterated by the Amazons. It was a very sad game. I mean, my ogre got bullied by girls. That's never a good thing. It's very indicative that something has gone very wrong. I would, however, I doubt that we'd have the time. Because these tournaments are usually packed full, so a full day activity. And we'd be pretty dead. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much exactly. And also it is very much how it worked out in the game. And now I will get my lumps on the recap. I won't be having a game this week. I'll have a admin win because there is an odd number of coaches in my division, and so we will all get a 1 week admin win. And mine happens to be now. So that is a 1 less week for me to be beaten by whatever monster of a team I'm gonna face. This season has not been going too well for me so far. At least I did score this time. And again, it started with a perfect defense for my opponent, which doesn't help much. This is why I actually had to rush my first score. And then I just screwed up on the defense and I got wasted. Their killer was flawless. I think she removed a player every time she blitzed, so that's 1 player down pretty much every turn. Whereas my ingenious strategy to use stab didn't work out. And my special secret weapon fouling player didn't do shit as well either, because he was never close enough. Well, actually there weren't that many knockdowns on the Amazon side, so he couldn't really get in and work his magic with a chainsaw. Which was sad. Yeah, the plan just completely fell into shambles. I couldn't readapt and think of anything decent to do. I just passively defended and got, well, destroyed, effectively. I did pull off a cage dive, but that was more of a desperation move than anything else, so it's not worth bragging about. And of course, being Amazons, that only resulted in a push, but still. Just going over the second layer of the base coat to ensure a good opaque smooth coverage to use as a base for further highlighting and layering. There are quite a few ways to approach this step, but most of the others require a good understanding of colors and whatnot. So I'm just sticking to the easy one. Sorry about the cam shaking, but the handle of my brush is hitting it. Oh, it's not hitting the camera, it's hitting the lamp that the camera is attached to. So I'm using a very clunky setup here. Alright, that's the legs done. Moving over to the exposed midriff, because why be safe when you can show off your abs? The camera is the Logitech C922. It's pretty much the standard for streamers. It's usually used as a face cam by the streamers who play more video games. But I did see someone trying it out for miniature painting, and it looked decent, so I decided to take part of it. Yeah, it does good. It does bring good quality. It can stream in 1080p at 30 frames per second or 720p at 60 frames. And yeah, it's very decent. I'm glad with it. Only problem is that when you come down to forcing some of the effects from it, it gets a little bit unstable, as you may see as the stream goes on. Oh, the focus is manual, that's why. I've turned off the autofocus. I've just calibrated it to essentially where my essentially where I paint, and I just stuck it there. With autofocus it becomes unbearable. 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . . . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 . 。 .
。 . 。
Oh yeah. However, I don't think these are options that necessarily come with the drivers themselves. It is the streaming software that I use to calibrate the camera, and so sometimes I get some funky effects. Most often, the thing that I've been complaining about ever since I got the camera is that lowering the exposure causes the very annoying flickering of the screen, and it's degenerative, as in the more time it's on, the worse it gets. So I am expecting it to happen again at some point, and when it does, I will show you just what I mean. And it makes it very difficult, and that's just because of the drivers don't include actual exposure control, and I'm doing it through the software for streaming. But for what it is, I mean, this is just a bog standard, ordinary, mid-price range webcam, and to be able to give such decent quality on such fine detailing work, I am more than happy with it. You do need to mind some things here and there. For instance, the last minis I painted, I primed white, and because this is light gray, as they were white, the camera just went bonkers insane. Like, they radiated light everywhere. But you try, you fail, you adapt, and so on. But yeah, it's definitely decent. You want to use it for anything of the sort. Also, sure, of course, of course. Also, for the audio quality, this is the mic in the camera itself. I'm not using a separate mic. And yeah, overall, this is a very good one. I'm happy with it overall, even though um, it does infuriate me from time to time, but more often than not, it works as intended. Oh, okay, I will. Thanks for the tip. Although I am standing right in front of it, like I am 3 fingers away from the mic. Right. Still, yeah, good tip. Thank you. I will look into it. It's interesting to play around with this technology, as it, on one hand, you have the cam itself and whatever its settings are, and then you have everything additional that the streaming software provides, and getting everything to work together and so on. It was pretty fun to get it to work. It was challenging but not frustrating, which is very weird. And I gotta say, I had a lot of fun. Setting this whole thing up. And I am still trying to find ways to improve it, so tips like this will come in handy. Because yeah, definitely there will be quite a few viewers that will be watching via their phones with their headsets on and whatnot. And I would need to accommodate for that. Right now I'm trying to find a nice layout to put on top of the stream, just to give some more feeling of organization, some borders here and there, make things look a little less DIY, put together, tied up with strings and tape. But most of the ones that are available are pretty elaborate and are aimed at game streaming. Which I also do. Like, I do stream games, but there is a lot of information that goes on in these layouts that I just don't need. Like countdown timers and event triggers, and mostly things related to audience interaction. Which, considering the viewer base currently, I don't think is an absolute priority at the time. Also, I don't currently do any giveaways or countdown bits or stuff. I just need a nice, clean layout. Something to place the chat in. A bordered frame for the face cam. Basically, that's about it. I could sit down and do it on Paint, but with the aspect ratio changes, it'll take me a million years to get things right. I prefer to just get one ready. But that is pretty much the only thing I'm currently looking at actively. And maybe making the camera a bit more stable with the flickering. And then maybe if I ever get to make affiliate, I might need to further expand. Maybe get some moderation, although right now, again, it's really unnecessary. Either way, it's a fun way to stream your hobby, it's a fun way to chat up with buddies and other like-minded individuals, and it's also a good way to keep me invested in the hobby, as in knowing that I have to do a stream works very well to motivate me to sit down and paint, and vice versa. And I've been much happier since I started from that perspective. Further down the line, I may play around with video editing so that I don't just post 3-hour videos on YouTube. Get a bit of editing in there. If I ever get the time. The most important thing is to not overcommit resources and time that you don't really have available. So I need to stick to something that I'm comfortable with doing consistently. So far, I think it's been going well on that front. Once the school year starts and I start training again, so leading the karate class, it may become a bit harder. So I will need to adjust the stream length and frequency a little bit. But I will cross that bridge once I get to it. I would like to get the time to put a couple of longer streams on the Surge by the end of next week. I really don't want to leave it out unfinished before I start the next game. So I need to see where and when I'd be able to fit that in. Yesterday I had a wasp fly into the room. Fairly large one. And we had a battle to the death. That was interesting. I ended up spraying it with gloss varnish, which disabled its flight capability. And once the battle was brought down to the ground, I won. So yes, gloss varnish can be used as a weapon. under the right conditions. It did make it a bit hard to breathe in the room, but the exhilaration of having killed the wasp was stronger than my chemical intoxication from the varnish spray. Yeah, that's pretty much how it worked. Yeah. I don't understand where they keep coming from. Like, I have nets on my windows. They are fairly tight. And yet I constantly get these huge flying insects like butterflies and other sorts of flying beetles, and this wasp was by far the largest. Like it was the size of a thumb, like for real. It was a monster. Now I think that's actually a glove, not her bare hand. I will paint it as a glove. Yeah. Yeah. Oh shit. Uh. Yeah, it's a bit hard to see because it might be that the gauntlet is on the hand clearly, but the fingers are a bit thicker than they would be on the normal stuff, so I'm gonna treat it as a glove. Did you win your fight with the mother of all mosquitoes, the mosquito queen, so to speak? And if you did the other mosquitoes accept you as their lawful leader? Really hard to tell. Yeah. Yes, on this side. So this here and this here is definitely part of the shielding. The underneath that's bugging me. Because there is an additional leather here. So it might be that the hand, so over here as well, this part here actually delineates the end of the leather strap that is under the bracer. And this happens to be an ordinary hand, like ungloved. Yeah, the straps, so just on top of the strap, I don't think you can see that. Yeah, see here, so that's on top of the strap. There is the end of another leather, well, piece. Yeah, so I'll paint them fleshy. Sorry about that sound effect. And that one. And also this is at maximum zoom for the cam, so I can't zoom it in any closer. Alright, so let's paint the other hand as well. Just real quick. There are so many mold lines that I missed during cleanup. And I am actually ashamed of showing this on camera. It's disgusting. And of course they only show up under this type of light and after I have primed the model. This is a consistent occurrence. Annoying as hell. Oh yeah, there we go. I have this pillow-like thing that I use to rest my elbows on when I paint for some stability. And because it's for stability, it is pretty hard. It's actually a piece of wood at the bottom. And it tends to really get to dig into my elbows after a while. And I would need to find another thing. But I have to go to probably IKEA will have something suitable for my needs. Essentially, it just needs to be something that I put on my lap that won't bend and is also soft and cushiony on the top. Okay, well, she's done as well now. How are we doing on time? Ooh, pretty nice. That went a lot faster than the previous two. That's odd. So that means that we'll have time for another color, which will be the gray. Ashen gray. I'll use it to paint the fur pelts and the rims of the bases right here. That's a fairly quick and easy way to do things. Since I've got the time, I might as well do it. Well, if this is indicative on the overall tempo that the girls will get painted, I'm pretty pleased. Being able to batch paint two base colors in one setting, this is gonna be good. Still think that it may be too much of a reach to get them done in a week, but who knows? Maybe I'll get the time. Take full advantage of the vacation, maybe over the weekend. Put in some longer streams. Who knows? And leave the surge out for later as a little bit of a break from painting. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let's go now. Alright, back to it then. The paint a nice shake, as usual. Yeah. This will require a few more layers because this is a layer paint and so the pigmentation is weaker. Yeah, you can see just how much more transparent it is as compared to the flesh color. So maybe I should have gone in a bit thicker. Oh, and this one has a paw at the end of the fur cloth. So I will need to break out some sort of ivory for the claws.
A time to escape all your demons. Show me a sign of life to feel a feeling. So what are you waiting for? Standing clear inside of you. Is there a meaning to behold? Nothing can get past you.
Just go over it methodically. This will of course be dry brushed afterwards to bring up the raised edges of the details, which will also highlight this beautiful mold line that's going through the pelt. But oh well.
Don't talk at all, just surrender to the lonely road. Left with nowhere to run, held by the curse we know. So what are you waiting for? Standing clear inside of you. Is there a meaning to behold? Nothing can get past you. We could try to outrun this earth.
I am counting this color towards the uniform color, which is why I am keeping it consistently gray across all the models of the team.
Just listen. That's the way computers talk to each other.
Now then the underside, going to be a bit more tricky to get paint there. part will get heavily shaded. Doesn't need to be perfect. And still, it needs to give out the idea of being grey. That'll probably do it. And here it's going to be a bit more tricky. I'll go in with thicker paint and as much of a fine tip as I can and get the rim of the fur pelt, trying to avoid getting paint on the flesh. And of course, because it's a layer paint, it goes on way too thinly. Which means the process will need to be repeated. No biggie. It's what I do. Then I can go in with some shade and give it a good delineation from the other areas. This is for a later stage of the painting. Go over it again. And again, and again. Sometimes you can see that there are these little bubbles forming. Usually you can just swipe them away with the brush. Or if they are in a hard to reach place, you can just blow on them like that, and they go away. This is something I learned a long time ago, because the paints that I used to use back then tended to create a lot of bubbles. and I saw it on a YouTube channel that I don't really watch as often anymore. I kind of should, because it's a very decent painter. Whose name I forgot, of course, because my brain is on autopilot. I think he was actually the first YouTube painter that I followed. He had some Space Wolf tutorials, and he was painting mini by mini, as in for display quality and not for playing. So he showed very interesting little bits and pieces. He also exclusively brush painted. He didn't use an airbrush. And he was only using the water-based acrylics. So it was an easier way to follow along with limited painting tools at my disposal. I should come back to him and see what he's doing right now. I think he was lost painting one of the Sorsha versions for War Machine, which is very good because she is from the Khador faction, and in War Machine I am playing Khador. Well, I used to play. Why the hell can I not remember his name? Very silly of me. Give him in praise here and forgetting how he's called, or the channel. It's pretty silly of me, ain't it? It's getting a bit sticky, so I would add some more water to it. Again, this is a paint with different pigmentation from the last one I used, so I need to readjust my concept of paint to water ratio and not judge on the opacity I see on the palette to decide whether or not it has enough water on. And this is partly why it is a good idea to stick to a certain brand of colors, of paints, because you tend to learn each one, so you know what to expect out of each paint, both for using it straight out and mixing it in with different colors. It just saves you a little bit of a hassle. Even so, it is a bit of an exploration and reinventing the wheel every time you paint a certain color on. For me at least, I don't know why, it's just always been... Maybe I'm putting too much thought into it or not enough thought into it. Yeah. But managing my consistencies has always been a nightmare. Oh, not a nightmare, but somewhat irritating back and forth process. And again, we reach the point where we need to paint the underside of the belt. And again, if I had primed this black, it would have been a lot easier. But just enough gray and suggest that it overall is gray, and then just wash it with black again for the shading, and it'll cover up. And I wouldn't need to fight in between her legs to and risk getting gray on the flesh, which is what I did. What's the beautiful thing about paint is that you can just cover it up with more paint. Maybe I can scrape off enough. Make a quick touch-up. Sorta works. I'll give it another go and it should cover up real nice. As if I never made the mistake in the first place. There we go. Back to the gray then. This lump of plastic will be gray, whatever it is. A miscast or an accumulated primer should not have been there because I oversprayed it as usual. In my defense, this used to happen when I was painting with the airbrush, so I am consistently incapable of giving quality prime work on miniatures no matter what tools I use. And again, I'm not even going to tackle the subject on the mold lines. And hopefully during the following and the coming building streams I will be able to detect and eliminate all of these mold lines before priming. I think I did pretty well with the Goliaths on that regard, so the next thing to be painted will probably not have too many glaring mold lines. But I've said this before, for this theme in particular, I was very excited when I got it, and I just really wanted to put everything together and get it to the point where I can start painting it. And as a result, some mistakes were made. This is the wrong miniature, isn't it? Yeah. So I got a bit overexcited and a bit zealous. Wanted to get everything done. So I should have made some of them with partial assemblies, sub-assemblies to make painting easier. I didn't. Should have paid more attention to mold lines, which I didn't. Should have paid more attention when gap filling and maybe have used an actual gap filler instead of the arthritis making concoction that I had to cook up by creating a milliput slushy, crushing it a million times until I got something like gap filling substance. So yeah, multiple errors on my side during the initial stages. And it's coming to bite me every time. So if I can give any advice out to anyone who is starting out and doesn't know this obvious thing already, is to actually do pay attention when you put your models together and you clean your models and whatnot, because the hassle of encountering these errors throughout the painting process is obnoxious, and also the end result is subpar. So we got the first painted up. Oh yeah, I wanted to have her breast sash painted gray as well. I knew there was a reason why I was spinning these things around like that. Because I do want it to be separated from the letter that is around it. So yeah, I think gray would be okay. Again, some weird music playing, but if it gets too obnoxious, let me know and I will change it. But as I am mumbling most of the time, I don't notice it as much. So I will leave it up to you to tell me at which point it becomes unbearable. Because I've loaded up pretty much all the music I can from this app. And it's just shuffling everything. And of course, the underboobs need to be painted. I'm spilling out paint everywhere at this point. But that's alright, touch-ups are inevitable. I usually do them unless it's something as glaring as the leg here, although apparently I'll need to go into it again afterwards. I do the touch-ups after I finish up the entire base coating stage. And just do them in bulk instead of going back and forward every time I see an imperfection. Which does leave me prone to miss a lot of them. And believe me, I do. More often than not, it's hardly noticeable. And I also usually do it with a smaller brush, so I have a bit more control over the things I'm doing. So sometimes it works out well, sometimes not so much. I think that'll be that. Yep. And although we don't get a perfect coverage, this is supposed to be a rough texture, so any opacity inconsistencies will actually work toward my advantage when trying to fix this as a rough textured cloth. So it should be fine. Bye, Tanif. Thanks for joining up. Have a good night, a good night's sleep, and see you soon. Cheers. No, I'm just saying that Itsanef is going to bed. I'll be around for a bit more. But yeah, you're very welcome. It is in fact my pleasure, and gratitude needs to go to you all for joining me. Aye, alrighty. So I guess we'll keep each other company for a little while longer. Oh, yeah. Another little break to come. And then we will be painting some base rims. So I do need to do it eventually, and since I already have the gray out, I might as well do so. And the reason I'm going with gray for the base rims is because in Blood Bowl, the different positionals, the different the different positional players can be color coded with their bases, especially for tournament play, which is what these guys will actually be doing. So I will be using the International Color Coding Convention for the positionals, and these ones will be great. Represent that they are alignment, well, in this case, aligned women. Interesting to note that color coding is not something that the original manufacturer of the game has implemented. This is actually an idea that the International Association of Blood Bowl came up with for the tournaments they host, in order to make it easier for other players to identify the different positionals when they are using different manufacturers for their miniatures, which allows for a lot more proxying and therefore a lot more variety in the types of miniatures that you can see representing teams. And now they have also come up with a rather weird and questionable concept on how to visualize the different skills that we will be giving to the players. But we will see how this plays out. I have my doubts, but at the very least, I think that there are better ways to do it than what they came up with. But people don't seem to be minding that very much. And to be honest, neither do I. I mean, I'll do it. It's part of the of the regulations, so I'll adhere to them. But I don't think it'll make anything easier. Like, the whole idea of the skill markers is to not need to reference the team sheet, the roster of players. And what they did is they color coded the skills, but they made the color coding so intricate that you actually have to have. Hey there, Pig in Space. Thank you for joining. How did your struggles with the Rebel go? Did you receive confirmation from the admins? Oh, okay. It does sometimes take them a little while. Oh, alrighty. To react, since most of them, well, all of them, have normal day jobs, and adminning the league is actually just a hobby. So give them some time and they will come back to you. What team did you create for Rebel, by the way? Because you do need to have one ready so that they can... Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. Well, aren't we all? But we've discussed this before. Oh, you're going pro elves. Nice. Meanwhile, I've been able to do some pretty good work, like getting 2 colors base coat on 2 minis in a single stream. Oh, okay, we are getting the flickering again. Lovely. Yeah? Why so? By the way, there are some subreddit, some sub Discord channels that are race team specific. So there should be a Discord channel dedicated just for pro elves. Hmm. Oh, okay. Well, that's a bit... I don't know. There's always this discussion. Cool. There is always this discussion about pro elves, as in being the worst of the elven teams, which I don't know. I mean, they have pretty good players. I don't know why people are so skeptical towards them. Yeah, exactly. So he's currently playing Chorfs, but the season before, the CCL season before, he was playing Pro Elves. And there are about 14 or 15 videos in a playlist. Oh yeah, there are a lot of discussions on Pro Elves and strategies related to them there. So you can definitely check them out. Just overall, like placing them in general regarding other elven teams. They are squishy, but aren't pretty much all the elves, with the exception of dark elves like that, and even dark elves. Like I think that high elves are the least squishy. Yeah. And they mostly complained that they are slow in general. So I don't know, I like pro elves, I really do. Yeah, I think high elves are 8 across the board as armor value goes. Whereas yeah, I don't think they're slow. He did complain about them being slow, but I don't see it. Like, yeah, the linemen are... Yeah, exactly. I mean, how can you complain about speed when you have a movement 8 player in the team? Especially considering that he is mostly playing Dark Elves, which are at most movement 7. It was weird. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You can have 4 movement 8 pieces with agility 4. How can you say that's slow? But I think he played with 2 across the board. So that may have been part of the situation. Yeah. Just played 2. Are we getting the flickering? Yeah, there's the flickering. Damn it. Yeah, but he did so for the entire run. I don't know, still, it is a good place to check out some recent games. No, that's still mine. I haven't had the chance to set up Amoscam. But I think that the result will be the same. I'll test it out. I probably won't get it to a stream, I'll just set up the camera and run a stress test. But I doubt the results will be any different. Yeah, stress it out again. Anyway, I'll just be painting the rims, so nothing much to see here of interest, so flickering or not, it'll be fine. I'm moving towards the end of the stream anyway. I just wanted to paint the rims because I'm already using the gray. And it's in front of me, and it's a bit of a tedious bullshit thing that I have to do. So yeah, definitely go and check out the Andy Davo run with the Pro Elves. Not a guarantee that it is the best approach to using Pro Elves, but still it's something. Something to go on. Maybe. Most of them are UK based, so there is a bit of a disparity for the time zones. Oh yeah, you can check if you've been ticketed. Although they do let you know usually. Yeah, there is one that's very near to me. A bit pricey, but it has some good stuff there. But it's definitely on the pricey side. It's good for a fancy dinner date, but not something I'd use on a regular basis. Oh, really? Yeah, I do seem to remember that the portions were decently sized. And yeah, the menu is great. I seem to remember they had very good desserts. Yeah. Well, worst case, you can always just take it to go. I don't think that's bad etiquette. So I'll leave them to dry a little bit and I'll go over again. Flickering is back. Be honest though, it has been 3 hours, so apparently this is about as much as the camera can handle before breaking down. 3 hours, which decent, I suppose. I very rarely stream more than 3 hours for the painting. Let's see if the gain trick works. Or if we did. Although it was backlight compensation. Gain maybe. Or just reset it maybe. As I did. How does it work now? Oh, okay. Really? Just resetting it works? No way. Just resetting the exposure settings. I don't believe this. Don't believe this for a moment. Holy shit, it works. But for how long will it work? Okay, so there is now a second workaround to this issue. Yeah, definitely, the La Bottega is definitely a decent restaurant. Again, as I said, a bit too pricey to go on a regular basis, but for a nice occasion, it's definitely good. And it also has some very good atmosphere, and I don't know which one you used, but the one I went to had very nice atmosphere. It was in a small street, so it wasn't very loud around. It was very calm and chill. It was a pleasurable experience overall. Yeah, it's fine. I was just giving overall comments on the restaurant you mentioned. Then that it is good, and it has good atmosphere, because the one I went to was in a small street, and it was quiet and good. The central one on Millingkamak. Right. Yeah, I think so. It might be the same one. What was I going to check here? Man, G-Man. Here we go. By the way, there. Oh, okay, so not the one that I remember the one you mentioned. Yeah. Yeah, I know it. I know it. I'm looking at the spreadsheet for the Rebel ramp up, and there does appear to be one coach who'll have a bye week, meaning that if you do get approved. Hey there, Farvik Noor. Thank you very much for the follow. You do unfortunately catch us at pretty much the end of the stream today, but there's still a little bit around. We'll be around for at least a little bit more. How is your afternoon going? How are you doing? And what did bring you to this channel, if I'm not asking too much, of course?
So far, yet always with us, inside our hearts and bones.
And this is probably not the most representative thing to show you right now, but what I've been doing is just starting off on these line women for my Norse team for Blood Bowl. And I just gave them a quick base coat for the flesh and the fur coats, the fur pelts. This one and this one here. Oh, that's nice. Is it a local league thing or a bigger tournament event? Ooh, nice. Is this what you will be bringing on the aforementioned event, or is it just something for the future? Oh, that's awesome. Having a buddy to play around with, that's always great. Keeps the hobbying alive. Keeps the hobby juices flowing. Yeah, most definitely. Also, having a schedule ensures that it's a bit more consistent. Oh, yeah, that is a good question, though. Depending on the size on the list. Cool. Do you play large games, like, or are you sticking to middle-sized? I don't know in 8th edition how the points cost change, but I seem to remember that around 2,000 points. Oh, wicked. That's actually pretty decent. Enough to get into the thing, but not too long so you don't get too exhausted or tired doing it. Pretty nice. Yeah, I haven't played a 8th edition game yet. Been focusing mostly on Blood Bowl. Yeah, so 2000 is still somewhere the midline, I guess. I should really give 8th edition a go. I have some models sitting around, maybe try it out. We're currently building some minis to try out Necromunda and Kill Team, also Warcry. but 40k was somehow left a little bit on the back burner. Like pure 40k, that is. Oh, what did you bash him from? Like, is it always GW stuff, or do you use third-party pieces as well? Meanwhile, you can see the ever so exciting me painting base rims. Just so that there is something going on the stream. And I go thick for the base rims, like there's no point in trying to go too light on this. I know, this is super exciting stuff right here. No, not at all. Please do share. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not particularly familiar with these kits. So having some visual aids will definitely help. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Oh wow. Holy shit, how much work you put into this thing. Yeah, the head is definitely a beast. Sir stomps a lot. Awesome stuff. Did you brush it by hand or did you use a airbrush to help things along? Because that's a lot of surface to paint. Corny, yeah. Yeah, the colors match. Oh, and here's the another pic of it. Yeah, wicked sick. The claw is also not from the standard kit, right? Am I on the money here? And the chainsaw looks converted as well, with a nice corny touch as well. Nice, very nice. Yeah, oh wow, hand painted, that really must have taken you a long time. They look great, dude, for reals. For real. All right, okay. Still, the head really adds so much character to the whole thing. Is a great idea of trying this out. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, in each and every aspect, this is a good idea and very well executed. Very nice. Well, I hope they do give the Salamenters a very rough time. Oh, what size magnets did you use for this? Because the bits are fairly heavy. I guess. Totally awesome. Yeah, good job. Good job all around. And you've picked a very good background. Are these the scenery that you'll be using on the game? Because they actually look pretty intricate as well. Yeah, so fairly large then, yeah. Right. Okay. Thanks. So yeah, they do need to be... yeah, so it's a quarter of an inch versus 16th of an inch. Yeah, yeah. We are currently, most of us here are Europeans, so we are a little bit imperially challenged in terms of these metrics. But I have seen them in most sites when ordering magnets, so it does speak to me. Like, I do get a rough idea. Oh, you carry him attached. You don't carry him in sub-assemblies. But that should probably save us some time. Especially if they hold together. Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely, yeah. These are fairly big models, and now with the spiky bits, it's kind of important to give them a decent amount of space whenever you're carrying them, in order to not risk anything snapping off and of that type. But yeah, again, really, really cool models, dude. Ooh, it's ancient one. Let me check this out. How did you like the contrast paints, by the way? I haven't had my hands on them yet, so I'm always looking for any comments, any experiences with them. Holy shit, that's intricate. Wicked stuff. Yeah, that's a head from the Lord of Change or so, something like that. Yeah, oh, sorry. I forgot to switch the pic. There it is. Yeah. I forgot to switch the scenes, sorry. Yeah, look at that thing. And also very nice transitions on the wings there. Especially at the end, so right here. The color transitions are very cool. On the neck of the beast, or the thing of change. Right, awesome stuff. So how did the contrast paints feel? Did you do any of the pre-highlighting during the priming phase? Because I see that you just here you've been layering in a standard way, or maybe is this part of the contrasts here on the neck? Either way, yeah, this looks magnificent, dude. So much stuff going in. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Oh, that's pretty. I suppose this is where the contrast paints actually came to play. Yeah, like the thicker washes, so it's more paint-like wash. But yeah, it does have the effect that it searches for, so it definitely has its uses. Suppose if you're batch painting multiple units, it might come in more handy if you have a quick way to apply pre-highlighting during the priming stage. The first comment, yeah. Definitely gonna ruin someone's day. Yeah, good stuff, really. And again, the head appears to fit very nicely, both mechanically and in terms of scale. The heads, that is. Did you have a lot of trouble fitting them in, or did they click together? I see, I see. No, they're really cool models, and I have very much enjoyed seeing all sorts of conversions on them. And also the paint jobs and especially freehanding. I've loved to see all of these wide surfaces being hand painted, being freehanded to some extent. It does give a lot of space. Yeah, that's it. The heraldry most often than not painted on by the like freehand painted on. But that does require a completely different approach to painting stuff. Yeah, I would suppose that that would be the case. Did you also use pins, or was the green stuff sufficient? Because I personally would definitely pin these things in. Yeah, here is the contrast. And of course I have another bug in my room. Now I have to hunt and kill. Oh, that's cool. A bit less drilling then. Yeah, because you do have a good surface, like sufficient surface to apply a lot of glue to get things to grab a good hold. I suppose that would work, yeah. Still very good. Very good ideas on combining fantasy stuff um, with the 40k stuff. I have personally never tackled something of this scale, and at some point I really should. Just for the experience at the very least. And you've also played around to magnetize it, which is amazing. Yeah, like I told you, the budget has been trimmed down. I cannot pay the monkey with enough bananas to go around doing stuff full time. So I had to let it go. And again, this scenery, is it what you play on? I think I remember. Yeah, I suppose that this is a valid point. But it just gives you so much, because of the large surfaces, it also gives you so much more options, so many more options to do stuff to it, both in painting and customizing. So it'll be just a different type of challenge, and I'm really looking forward to tackling something like this. Was it a Reaver Titan or something larger? Yeah, sure. If it's easy for you to find the link, that'd be appreciated. Yeah, thank you. Because we are currently collecting bits and pieces to make good boards for Necromunda. Ah, the biggest Imperial, right. Oh. He just popped into place. Oh, nice, yeah. So this is a cinch in theme for the backdrop, not only the army. Is this your stuff, by the way? Oh, okay. I really dig the dreadnought color. Bringing in pink, it really fits when you think about it with the whole Thinchian theme. Because on many places you see wings and other details going into violet and purples and pinks, and bringing that into the dread is awesome. It makes it stick out, as in it is a bit. However, you can see how it fits thematically, right? Like it does become a focal point of the army without not being linked to them, which is great. I have never thought of that. Because you can see here the horrors also having splashes of purple. And these guys as well. Oh my god, that's a beautiful army. Yeah, here exactly, the wings that I mentioned. Heralds of Magic, okay. Yeah, I suppose that's the one, like, right here, or maybe. Yeah, and the scenery is also very good. And this is totally a playable board, I think. Oh, so it's actually even canon. All right. I didn't see that. You certainly have a knack for naming those dudes. Same with the Titans, the Knights. Ah, these things, yeah, yeah. Dr. Danger Noodle and Nurse Bad Touch. Good stuff. Good stuff. Oh, now I'm getting all itchy, wanting to paint some 40k stuff again. It's been so many years since I painted anything 40k related. By the way, I am currently having some polls on Facebook with asking everyone what would you like me to see, what would you like to see me paint, build, and play as a video game. So there might be some things that would spark your interest. So if you're into it, you can just hop on over to Facebook. There's a button beneath the player, and you can just tell me what you would like to see me do next. Mostly Blood Bowl stuff, but there is some 40k and some War Machine, some Wild West Exodus. Oh, well, if it works, it works. But I do personally always love the funny names. It gives sort of additional character to the minis. Like going with far too serious names doesn't really connect with me that much. So I do appreciate a little bit of humor in my grim darkness. During the last stream we did touch up on quite a few of the memes and some gimmicks going around for the angry Marines and whatnot. Gonna give him a quick coat of paint, and I think that that will be all for today. And before the camera decides to fall apart again. Yep, that'll be that. And with that, I believe that this will be the end for today's stream. Barbik Nordtail, thank you very much once again for joining us and for giving me a follow. I wish you a very fun game tonight, and may you stump some salamanders, I guess. Thank you everyone else for also joining me, and I don't think I'll be back tomorrow, but in the coming days I'll be back to continue with the dudettes of the Norse team. In the meantime, keep loving what you do, doing what you love, and I've been Bachakolio, signing out. Bye guys!